So I'm James Hall, head of GreenOps at Greenpixie, and we are a sustainability data source, essentially trying to create electricity metrics where it's impossible to get them, namely the public cloud, because what we're seeing is FinOps and engineers and people like that want to bring sustainability to the workplace. And if you're working in FinOps and engineering, optimizing your cloud, then there's a great sustainability story to tell if you can get the right data. And that's what Greenpixie's mission is.
Awesome. I'm Mark Bradley, one of the product leaders here at Flexera, and I had a deep passion for sustainability in our ITV product. I helped build that out, and then I saw the opportunity within cloud, and then I saw cloud was different. Cloud is a lot of active sessions, a lot of activity, a lot of ups and downs in terms of infrastructure, and I really dug in. The more I was doing the research, the quicker I found Greenpixie. And when I understood the math, I understood the certification process, I understood all that it takes to do that, I don't know that we would have had time to make it to market. And that's why when we found Greenpixie and they already had this solution, it was like the old commercials, peanut butter jelly coming together and boom, you got an amazing sandwich. So when we started working together, I think James posted on LinkedIn how we met, and then we sat in this bar drawing this stuff out on napkins, and then we started going to the CCO and started exporting the data and go, here's my data, what can you do with it? James would take the data and go, well, here's your carbon, water, electricity. Oh, look, we still have the cost. How's that? I'm like, that's freaking awesome. Let's put some dashboards together. So we put some dashboards together. And then there was one of the partners here that we did this for, and they loved it. We showed a few customers, and then just fast forward to Earth Day, we launched an announced partnership. I think we were scheduled to do it a little bit earlier, but we were able to get it right on Earth Day, so that was pretty cool. So now we have early access, and would be super excited if anyone's interested into digging into that, help us make sure that we got it right. Cool. I'll let you take the control there, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I just wanted to start by talking a little bit about the relationship between FinOps and GreenOps. They're not separate practices. In fact, I think one drives the other, and together they become greater than the sum of their parts, really making up where one is strong and the other's a bit weaker. So when I talk about the strengths and weaknesses, I'm really talking about the data and the motivation. So FinOps has the data. In fact, there's probably too much data. There's not a data problem in FinOps, and you're probably buying tools because you need better ways to observe and actually glean insights from the data. But when you look at the state of FinOps reports and where the challenges and where the focuses are, it's in how do you actually turn this data into action? How do you get organizational buy-in? How do you get engineers motivated to participate in FinOps? But GreenOps has the complete opposite problem. People are passionate about it. They're probably recycling at home, having reusable water bottles, and they want to be able to bring that passion to work. But there's a huge data gap in GreenOps at the moment. So that data gap, what am I talking about when I mean the data problem? Well, if we look at how the cloud providers treat costs at the moment, there are 7 million different SKUs in AWS, different prices, different rates, tiers, and things like that. So this kind of nuance and detail is really what makes FinOps possible. But when you look at the data that comes out the cloud providers at the moment from a carbon perspective, the carbon SKUs, AWS will give you 3 numbers for EC2, S3 another, Azure and GCP not really doing much better. So you have to treat these data sets as fundamentally different. And that's really what the gap for GreenOps is. Engineers and FinOps people can't treat carbon as a currency. But if you were able to treat carbon as a currency, then suddenly GreenOps becomes a lot more intuitive. And it's not just the details of like the SKUs. There's a lot of gaps that we've identified working with customers around why the data isn't really hitting the mark for what they have as their requirements. And that's really where Greenpixie want to be able to create that carbon as a currency data set, get down to the SKU level. So we provide the data, but we needed somewhere to put that data. And what better platform is better at managing cost observability and dealing with data in currencies than Flexera? So putting our data together, we're able to create the one platform for all your IT, cost and carbon, 2 solutions greater than the sum of their parts. Really hitting all those spots that we identified that customers needed to really drive proper GreenOps, and ultimately making the most out of that huge overlap between GreenOps and FinOps. Things like right sizing, turning up unused instances, changing storage tiers, all these things FinOps engineers are already doing that Flexera is identifying, telling that GreenOps story to drive more action.
This is the magic. Here's the magic slide. Like when James and I were working on it, first of all, we've been involved with FinOps Sustainability SIG, and we've also been involved in the FinOps Focus for Sustainability SIGs. So we've been participating, helping understand, guide, and so yesterday we got to show some of the team members what we've done, which was pretty cool. It was pretty exciting to be able to show them what we worked on. But the idea here is that once we understand your current inventory, and we understand the chipsets and the setups that you're doing, and then based on the utilization and the workload, we're able to make recommendations of alternates, and then based on that, you'll see the monthly savings. Let's see if that does a laser. Yeah, you'll see the monthly savings, but then in addition, it's the double win. The second win is you get to say carbon savings, water, and electricity. And because we've done the research, I should say Greenpixie, because they've done the research, they know the 2 chipsets specs, so they're able to do the calculation and show you that savings, which is pretty significant. And so we'll show you how we derive to that. This will let me go one more. There we go. So the way we look at it, when we talk about IT sustainability, we talk about 5 use cases. The first use case is cloud. Cloud's the most active and changes constantly. The second one, which IT visibility, which is one of our products, manages, is the server and data center. And so what we do here is we'll give you the manufacturer provided information. So after we've scanned your environment, we know what servers, what server types, and then we have that information. So we're able to put that here. The opportunity is if we want real-time utilization to be able to grab that. And so we have some partners that we're working with to help capture that gap. And then end user devices. I like to say end user devices are death by 1,000 paper cuts. Because if you think about how many devices that you have, think about how many are at your desk. You probably have 8. 8 seems to be the average, the magic number. If you count your cell phone, your iPad, your laptop, desktop, you got a screen here, you got a screen there. Before you know it, you're like, wow, I got 8 of these things. Each one of those has a scope 3 of a ton of carbon and a ton of water to produce that device. And then if you only have it for 3-4 years, the stockpile is incredible. Yeah, I could see we're all nodding. It's nothing new to all of us. And then the other half is the other part's network. Network is really hard to get that information. And I'm seeing that the vendors have dramatically improved their information. I have this little stick figure guy because I was complaining on one of the larger firms. I couldn't find it. And every time they give me a chatbot, I would say, you have horrible information about sustainability. I can't find the specs on any of this stuff, and your stuff is everywhere. Please help. Here's my phone number. I don't believe you're going to call me. And they called. They set up a session. We walked through it. I showed them what their competitors were doing, and then it started to appear. I don't know if I had an impact. It was probably already in motion, but I felt good about doing it. So nonetheless, we have that information. And then the most valuable is what we call value-based recommendations. Your next thing is after we show you all this, you're like, oh, that's great. But what do I do about it? I don't know what all that means to me. Help me understand what all this carbon and water and whatnot, what does that mean? So this is where we start to get in and start doing these value-based recommendations. And we'll continue to evolve this and make it better as we go, but we needed to start somewhere. And so that's where this comes in. All right. How do we do it? So this is for the cloud. This is the cloud piece. This is one we're showing here at the show that we did for early access. The way it works is you have the 3 cloud providers, and we have Greenpixie that does the magic. Our product called CCO, Cloud Cost Optimizer, does all the aggregation. It already logs into each of the cloud providers. It downloads the cloud bills. It does that all day, every day. And then what we do is we carve out just a section of it, about 8 fields or so, maybe 10, between each cloud provider. We process that through Greenpixie. Greenpixie gives us the math back, and then we're able to present it in its own dashboard. The other one on the bottom, that dashboard comes from IT visibility. So that's from data center all the way back, manufacturer provided. And then the final screen is what I call the end-to-end. This is where we bring both data sets together on one screen, and we start to show you how we bring this together. And then now you start to do the value-based was, hey, if I move this server from my data center to the cloud, is there some savings, both financially as well as sustainable? And that's where the magic starts to come in. This is just an example. We did this in case the demo gods didn't want us to show it to you live. So I'm showing you some of the previews now, and then hopefully they'll be good to us and let us show you live. But the idea is it's a combined dashboard. It has all 3 providers. Well, actually today we have 2, and we're like moments away from launching the Google Cloud into there. But the idea is that you have this total emissions. We do the trending. So if you're going up, red is bad. It's not like Wall Street, green is good. So we did red is bad. You're seeing the cost, you're seeing the water, you're seeing electricity, and you're seeing carbon right away. And then as you cruise over, we give you the balance between which data center or which cloud providers that we have this data set for. As we get down in the map section, we can show you where the carbon's coming from in each of the data centers. The larger the circle, the more carbon coming from it. Chances are you probably have some pretty significant workloads in there. Some of the opportunities may be to move things between time zones, that sort of thing, more that we can dig into. The tree chart on the right shows you the significance of carbon based on your lay of the land. So all the different services that you're subscribed to, all the different activities, we tabulate that so that you can see, visually, if you will. And as you cruise down, the lower left was pretty interesting because we're trying to show here that costs should not be a proxy for carbon. I think we're all in agreement because nobody in this room pays the same price for anything, let alone all the discounts and everything else. So what we're showing here is as you're seeing your costs, we're showing you your carbon. And then we can show you the actual carbon as it's going through on a day by day. An interesting story on this, large soda company did significant changes in February. We introduced the dashboard to them. The first thing she did was go to February, and she saw it's a double win. I already knew I had the financial savings. Now I get to update my status report and include my carbon savings. And that's pretty significant. It's pretty important to them to be able to do the double win. And then the other one is how do my 2 cloud providers, or eventually 3 cloud providers, on a daily basis, how much carbon am I putting together? This is our, what we call a carbon optimizer. So what we do is based on policies that are inside of CCO, they're already looking at your financial savings. What if, kind of like going to the doctor's office, they put that other lens in front? What if we put the sustainability lens in front? So in addition to showing you your cost savings, we're showing you your carbon and your water savings. What if I can run that policy on the top here, and then on the bottom, I can show you the actual resource level, which one it is, and then the recommendations that we make. So you saw the chart earlier where we talked about, if you have this, we could recommend this. And this has the policy end to find that and look for that and then bring that to your attention. Now, there may be reasons why you choose not to do it all, and that's fine. And so what we're planning on doing is this, I reviewed it, check mark, put it in a stockpile. We'll come back to it later. But these are the ones that are every day it's looking at your data to make these recommendations. Cool. And then the roadmap, just a quick high level. We're making great progress. GA coming soon. but we're trying to get a few more EA customers in so that we can run their data through, learn, understand, teach, and kind of take it from there.
Okay. Where is the most GreenOps related demand coming from these days?
GreenOps?
Or sustainability? Where are you hearing most of the interest coming from?
Well, in terms of like industry or like personas in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's it does depend on geography, but we're seeing that the cloud sustainability is a problem for the biggest companies in the world. The ones with the more vendors you have, the more problems you have with the sustainability data, considering all the different methodologies and different timeliness and different ways they report it. So really, the companies that are across all three clouds with hybrid as well as they're on-premise, the ones with, the more confusing and the more different data sources you have, the more need there is for a normalization and aggregation tool that actually helps you create a single pane of glass for all of this stuff. So we're working with the likes of MasterCard and HSBC and Johnson & Johnson because they have those big IT sustainability initiatives for their on-premise, and because they have enormous cloud spends, they stand the most to gain from driving more efficiency using sustainability.
Yeah, my screen froze, so I'm waiting for it to catch up. Yeah.
If a customer had like a goal of, by 2030, I want to net zero, do y'all have like a progress tracker towards that goal?
Yeah, well, we're treating carbon as a currency again. So if you can think of it as like a budget, you've got a carbon budget you need to hit over the next 5 years. And because we're giving you data at the SKU level, you can kind of forecast same way you forecast your cost, you can forecast your carbon, and you forecast the potential cost savings as well as carbon savings. So really the limit is like, what can you do with currency data today you should be able to do with that carbon data. So measuring and tracking and forecasting is all things that will be completely possible. And how you use that data to marry it into your net zero goals or your electricity reduction targets is kind of up to the end user.
And to add to that, as part of the roadmap, this quarter I did a discovery. What would it take to take our carbon data and bring it into CCO's budget, forecast, and allocation? Because now you can treat carbon like currency. It's got its own symbol, and we can treat it and manage it in the same way. We recognize that it's not a Y2K thing. Remember back in the day, we did a bunch of work, and it was just for this one-day event, and for many of us, it was non-eventful, just late night. Here, we know that every single quarter, customers are going to have to start reporting and forecasting. And then the day will come where blue water is refined, and we know that we only have a limit. We know that there will be a day that says we can't put more power plants, more coal, more nuclear, whatever it's going to take to keep these plants going. So we need to be able to figure that out. And we believe that as customers start to adopt this now, put themselves in the best possible position, so when the rates start to go up in a crazy way, you know why, and you're aware of it. And you've already done what I considered a low-hanging fruit, and you put yourself in a position of strength. So that's coming. When I showed it's interesting because when I showed the CCO group that manages our budgeting and forecast, they were super excited. They're like, absolutely, let's do this. So we're like exporting files, we're putting it through, we're going through the paces, we're doing the allocation, do the budget, what happens when I get the next one through. So I'm excited. I can't wait till we launch that. But great question.
You mentioned net zero goals, and it made me think of some reading I did recently on Greenpixie's website about location-based versus market-based calculations. So could you talk a little bit about how Greenpixie's doing those calculations and what sort of numbers we should be looking for?
Yeah, so one of the main criticisms that comes from the cloud providers is that the market-based data that they have, because real electricity and location-based data, when you're a data center operator, you require the data center address and the exact hardware specs and the telemetry data that would make GreenOps possible. But that is highly sensitive information that the cloud providers literally cannot give you, because if you have the electricity, you can start working out margins around how much they're adding onto their services and things like that. So that's why they use the market base, because it's a bit easier to say we buy power from like we buy certificates from a Swedish wind farm, and we say that we match that to power being used in our Austin, Texas data center. And that's kind of the market-based approach, which is a technically valid way of reporting. But when you really want to drive a reduction, saying, right size this server to go from 0 carbon to 0 carbon, that is not going to drive action. So we use the location-based method, which is at any hour of the day in the London data center, what is the carbon intensity of London at that time using national APIs. So we're actually like an aggregator of multiple data sources, so like hardware specifications, performance data to get the electricity, and then location data and grid intensity from local APIs like carbonintensity.org is the one in the UK that tells you, by hour, what is the carbon intensity of all these different regions in the UK. So you can even distinguish between like the Wales Azure data center and the London Azure data center. The Welsh one is UK West. It's got 3 times the carbon intensity of the London region. So the devil really is in the details, because like a source like electricity maps would treat the UK as one big region. So you lose that nuance between Wales and London, for example, meaning you're not able to make an informed decision about what data center to put it in. So that's why we choose the location base, because it also allows us to normalize across the cloud providers, not taking into account how much energy they're purchasing.
That was a phenomenal question. That was well done. I like that one. You'll learn more about that. I think we have a couple slides on the training we have that Greenpixie has put together, and that's one key area they zone in on to help you understand these nuances, that it's not just about sustainability. There's a lot of data points that are involved in order to get to these numbers. And that's why we don't feel that it's something that you can quickly do. There's some research, there's some understanding. A lot of academia, if you will, goes into this.
How static versus dynamic are those data you're going? I guess updated once a month, day, hurricane acts up and then fire, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so it's pulled every single day, but because we're using not every country is as forthcoming as the UK, for example, that gives hourly data by region. But like say you're trying to use one of the Middle Eastern regions or the China region where the hourly data isn't possible. So you're always just trying to find what is the most granular and nuanced data you can find, and then using that. So some of them are like monthly averages that you have to use, but in a lot of the in the important regions like in Europe and in the US, you can get pretty good hourly metrics, and we refresh them once a day because that is how often the cloud provider data is given.
Cool.
I love the double win scenario. In the situation where the two numbers are at odds, do you have the ability, or will a customer have the ability to say cost savings is more important, so I want to weight that first and get recommendations?
I have 2 thoughts on that. One, we know there's situations where that's going to happen, and cost savings are probably what they're driving towards. But the flip side is many companies are paying those offsets. So maybe the savings comes on the offset side less than the chipset side, if you know what I mean. So that's one approach. In the optimizer, we knew that you weren't going to be able to do all the ones that we recommend. And we want to set it up so that you check and say, I've reviewed it and I'll come back at another time, but I know it's there. And I'm going to go after the easy ones and then, and work through those use cases. But we'll at least give you the visibility so that you can make that choice. Today, the only visibility you have is cost. Great question.
Is there a competence rating on the data? So, something coming out of London we know might be fairly legit. Something coming out of another country might not.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the accuracy is really important, because that's kind of why people choose Greenpixie. But that's not the only pillar of good data. Like the transparency and the consistency and coverage of different SKUs is the other critical pieces. So the absolute transparency is what really builds trust in the data. So you can see a line item of electricity, and if you're curious where it came from, you can audit it right back to the data sources and the confidence levels. So yeah, that's a really important piece of what we do.
Yeah. And then to add to that, the ISO certification, that was really critical for us, that the process, the calculations, the methodology has gone through a process whereby someone put a stamp on it and said, we certified this. ISO, it's like a
14064 is the carbon one.
Yeah. Cool. I could do just a general overview. I kind of did a little bit, but at least so you could see that it's a live product and not slideware. So this is logged into Flexera 1, and I was able to get a leaf as my little icon. I thought that was kind of cool. Originally, I wanted the recycling thing, and I said, no, you can get the leaf. So the leaf it is. And then the way we broke it down is the first dashboard is the combined effort. So if you have multiple cloud providers, it all comes together here. And then each time the cloud providers are giving us updates, we're able to take those updates and then ship them off to Greenpixie, and it comes right back, and then it reflects here. So if you're getting 2 or 3 updates a day, we're getting 2 or 3 updates a day. It's pretty streamlined. And that automation, in my opinion, is the game changer. Because there's a lot of companies that'll do it and they'll like wait for a month or do a couple months at a time, or it's not that real time. Here, because we know that cloud is so dynamic, you need this kind of information to make timely decisions. Cool. So this first area, one of the key things that customers asked us about was being able to filter by many things like product, region, cloud providers. And so the idea is that you can, of course, it's going to take a minute to come up. Here it is. So you can see all the different resources that you're using. It's more than just the physical device. It's also the various services, and being able to calculate that is pretty significant. And so as I'm combing through, you can just kind of see quickly all the different services that we're able to calculate. The date ranges, the regions, category, subcategory. This dashboard, and the idea was to help prepare it so that we can bring both ITV and cloud together, and so that you have that common look and feel. And then when it does come together, then you can work with it in a common manner. So as I mentioned before, you get the total emissions, your unblended costs, electricity, water, which cloud providers are providing the data for this data set. As we got in, we started to see each of the countries and where the carbon's coming from, the intensity based on size. And then if I click on any one of these, I can start to see the emissions by subcategory. Things like compute, storage, network. I can see what it looks like. And then as I cruise over a little bit more, this is where I was talking about where I can compare total emissions versus spend, and that you should never use spend as a proxy. And I've gone through many presentations where there's a big 5 accounting firm, and when the hammer is in your toolbox and that's the only tool you have, you look at finance, and that's what they come charging with, and you're like, no, I don't agree with that. And then we get into each one of the tabs, similar look and feel, but then we start to give a little bit more information, where here we're breaking it down so you can see which month, what are my big heavy hitters that are producing the most carbon. And then as we get into a little bit more, we start to introduce some additional granularity, where you're starting to see the different services, and then within those services, what kind of carbon and water, electricity. And then the real magic gets into at the detailed level, and what you're looking at is a resource level. You see the product, you see the account, you see the region, resource ID, and then as you go across, the unit of measure, and then machine type, and then we start to get into emissions, electricity, water, and cost. Once you have this, the dashboards are great, but now you can start to funnel this into many other areas to do more with this important and valuable data. Cool. I'm getting 5 minutes. I just wanted to show you, it was called the AI Carbon Optimizer because I did this in an internal hackathon. And if I didn't say AI 5 times, I didn't make the top 5. even though I'm fixing what AI produces. So the idea here is that looking at your policies based on what you have in our system, we can see potential savings, potential water savings, and potential carbon savings. We did put together like a narrative, and then down here has the different policies. So when I click on one of these policies, it's showing what my savings are, but below it's showing me which resource types and what we recommend, and then it's showing the savings as you go to the right. And so now all we're saying is these are recommendations based on what we see. Now it's up to FinOps experts to go and say, I like that idea, that makes sense. Or maybe the next step is we trigger a policy to run, to do, execute some of these. But that's the idea on this one. And then, I guess for now, I have more I can show. Like when we would demo, I go, if I had 5 more minutes, I'd be showing you this dashboard. If we had 2 more minutes, I'd show you this dashboard. But we don't have that kind of time. So should we wrap up with any closing thoughts, or do we have a couple more slides?
Hey, Mike Thompson here from AMD. James, nice to see you again. I had a question about some of the recommendations. A lot of your green optimization and cost optimization recommendations on one of your earlier slides were on AMD instances, which we really appreciate. Thank you. We're here to tell the same story. But they were 3 generations old, and I wonder, do you have anything on the roadmap to target more modern instances? You were using AWS there, so 7th generation AWS.
Yeah, well, those were just examples. Like because we are at the SKU level, and we focus on the data and let Flexera do the hard work with the aggregating and the recommendations. So we support all the instances, basically, as they come out, including GPUs and now supporting LLM models as we go. So just in those examples, those are typical right sizings you see based on vCPU, essentially. But yeah, I know there's a lot more AMD can do with specific modernization recommendations as well. So we'd love to be pulling in performance data from you guys and making those kind of unique recommendations.
Yeah, please connect with these guys on LinkedIn. And James, thank you. Mark, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming. Thank you all.